Hello, and welcome to the first webinar in Fishman PR's series of webinars. Today we're going to be talking about 3 ways that content marketing can close franchise deals faster. I'm Rachael Wachstein, Vice President of Content Marketing at Fishman PR, and thank you all so much for attending. So today we're going to go through a brief introduction to content marketing for franchise sales. And then we're going to talk about 3 different phases in the franchise sales cycle where content can be leveraged to help close deals faster. That includes discovery, consideration and due diligence, the decision-making process, and then we will conclude with rounding up the 3 takeaways, followed by question and answer session. So let's take a look at why content marketing is an essential part of franchise sales. And this has everything to do with how franchise prospects are engaging with franchise brands. So in the past, franchise brands had more control over the process. You remember the old websites that had gates that required users to act in a certain way and look at information in a particular order in order to move on to the next part. Those days are gone, and franchisees, because they have greater access to information, are more self-directed in their research of franchise opportunities. And that is why content is so critical, because you need to have content that speaks to prospective franchisees, because you're not going to have contact with them the way that you used to, or at least not until probably the very end of the process. So in today's presentation, we are going to explain how to use content marketing to influence and speed up franchise sales cycles. So let's start with discovery. We're going to talk about how you can use content to help raise awareness of your brand and the franchise opportunity amongst candidates who don't already know you. So let's take a look first at the old school way of getting brand awareness and the new content marketing approach. So both Carl's Jr. and Sears have the same goal. They want to sell franchises. But if you look at Carl's Jr., this is your typical banner ad. And it's all about what the brand wants, and that is to sell franchises, but it does nothing to engage with franchise prospects. It doesn't speak to anyone's particular needs. So Sears also wants to generate leads and raise brand awareness, but they used a value-added content marketing approach. So they're providing information that validates their opportunity and also speaks to the specific audience that they're targeting, which in this case was multi-unit QSR franchisees looking to diversify their brand. So statistics show that inbound marketing practices produce, on average, 54% more leads than traditional outbound practices. And I think by looking at these 2 examples, you can clearly see why content marketing can improve lead generation. So let's take a look a little bit deeper into the discovery process. So in order to generate new franchise leads, the first step is to make prospects aware of the opportunity, obviously. But this is harder than you may think. So in a world where there's so many messages and there's message overload, the question is, how do you break through and connect with qualified prospects? How do you stand out? And what we've found and what statistics show is that the best way to get attention for your franchise opportunity is by creating niche content, content that really speaks directly to a particular segment of your franchise prospects. So how do you go about creating that powerful content that's going to speak to the specific needs of franchise prospects? You start with audience segmentation. So I can't tell you how many times I've worked with franchise sales executives and I've asked them who their target audience is. And the response is usually something along the lines of, well, they need to have, this much net worth or liquid assets, be in this part of the country, and, maybe it's males aged 25 to 80 who want to leave their corporate jobs. That's not an audience. That's a wide net. So the first step is to really create profiles of the target audience that you are looking to hit up. And you don't want to try and be all things to all people. You're going to have a lot more success if you divide out your audience into segments. And then you want to build out a profile that's going to provide insights into that segment's particular goals, interests, motivations, and the pain points that owning your franchise could resolve for them. And then the insights are used to develop the messaging that's going to resonate with them. And that's how you pick up and generate leads and awareness. So let's take a look and build out a buyer persona. So to develop the personas and figure out what the specific needs, desires, and pain points are as it relates to investing in your brand, you are going to want to take a look at a number of factors. And if you have a small or emerging franchise, you may not have a lot of data to work with. So a couple of things to keep in mind. You might want to include some of this information in your onboarding process when you're bringing in a new franchisee. Get some background information from them. Talk to them. Find out, why did they decide to invest? What were their highest priorities? What were their pain points? And why do they feel your franchise is a good fit? Because you're going to be able to leverage that in marketing your franchise opportunity in the future. You can also, if you have a more mature brand, do a poll or a survey of your existing franchisees to get some of this important information. So let's look at our potential franchise candidate. So we need to know what their situation is. What are their highest priorities? What are their needs and desires? This could be having to do with the lifestyle that they're going after. It could have to do with something very specific, like they're currently invested with a brand that is oversaturated and does not have territory available. And their need is to find a brand that they can continue to grow with. That could also fall under their pain points. And objections can be a variety of things. So thinking about what comes up when you're talking to franchise prospects and what is some of the pushback that they give. You can actually create content and deliver that content to prospects before you ever have a phone call with them. Then you want to take a look at their habits. So how are we going to deliver this message to them? How do they consume media? What media do they consume? Who do they trust as sources? Is it going to be other franchisees? Is it going to be Entrepreneur Magazine? How do they research franchise opportunities. So finding out this information is going to help you figure out where to place your content and how to promote your content. And then finally, you want to think about, once they have decided to invest with you, are there additional stakeholders? Are there going to be other obstacles that you have to overcome? What really goes into their decision-making process? And again, you create content to help move them through this process. So if you're interested in trying to develop a prospect persona for your franchise, feel free to email me and we will send you a worksheet. And you can use these personas not just to develop online content marketing strategies, but this can also inform all of your marketing efforts as it relates to franchise sales. So now that you have an understanding of your target segment, this particular niche that you are going after, it's time to use these insights to connect with and motivate prospects and move them closer to closing the deal. And so the way that you want to do that is to actually map out the process, all of the touch points. How is your program going to work? So from the time that they're first introduced to the franchise opportunity, or if it's an email nurture campaign and you're nurturing existing leads, from that point to the final stage, you need to know or have in your mind a visual of how ultimately you would like them to be interacting with and experiencing your content. So let's pretend that this is our buyer persona, and we're going to build out a content map for this persona. So in this case, we are targeting multi-unit franchisees from non-competing QSR brands. And this particular persona, their goal is to grow their QSR franchise portfolio. And their primary pain point right now is that the brand they've invested in is oversaturated and has limited territory available. So here's an example of a content map and how you might deliver certain messaging to these people at the right time. So perhaps you kick off your campaign with an email through a QSR trade publication. So they get an email, and the email is advertising a free ebook. And the topic is how to identify a QSR brand with growth potential. You could even get more niche in your targeting. Instead of just going out to all multi-unit QSR contacts through a trade publication, you could also do some research and figure out what QSR brands are actually limited in territory. And then you can run an advertising campaign advertising the ebook on LinkedIn directly to franchisees of those brands. So the more specific you can get with both your messaging and your delivery, the better the results are going to be in the end. So after they see this email with an advertisement for the ebook, they are interested because it speaks to them, and they click on a link to the landing page. And on the landing page, there's the offer for the free ebook. In order to access it, they need to input their contact information. So that's one of the ways that content marketing can really help in this particular phase where you don't know these prospects, and content can be the reason why you first make contact with them or they make contact with you. It's a good way to get sort of that first click through and to capture their information initially. So now that they've downloaded the ebook, they're going to receive a thank you email. And when they sign up for the ebook, they automatically were opted in to an email nurture campaign. So over the next 5-6 weeks, they receive an email per week, and that email addresses some of the pain points, the value propositions, goals and desires, things that are going to, messages that are going to move these people along. So after they receive the email nurture campaign, or while they're receiving it, they click on a call to action within one of those emails that directs them to set up a call. So they speak to the franchise sales team, who then follows up with an email application. And the last step is that they fill out the franchise application. So there are lots of different ways that you can distribute content on your own paid and earned channels. So you want to think about your franchise development website or your franchise section on your main website, your social channels, and specifically LinkedIn. You can use pay-per-click. You can use online advertising channels, such as doing e-blasts through industry publications. So let's take a look at an example of this type of content. So the target audience here is multi-unit QSR franchisees who own concepts with saturated territories. So their desire, their goal is to continue to build their portfolio, and their pain point is that the brands that they're currently invested in have limited territories. So the content solution here is an ebook that provides tips on how to evaluate a QSR brand for growth potential. It's not, kicking them in the head with buy a Bojangles. It is, this is what you should look for. These are the questions you should ask when you're looking for a brand that has growth potential. And, oh, by the way, Bojangles has a lot of growth potential. So prospective franchisees become aware of the opportunity through this campaign that speaks very much to their pain point and is offering a solution to something that they care very much about. So this campaign is going to be supported with advertising on LinkedIn and through purchase lists of QSR multi-unit franchisees. But you can also utilize lists that you have already and leads that you have in your existing system. So here's the first takeaway. If you want to dive right into content marketing, we suggest developing a big idea piece, a content piece that speaks to the needs of a particular segment of your target franchise prospects. And this is going to shorten the time it takes to get prospects engaged with your brand. So I don't know how many times on average people need to see a banner ad before they click on it, if they ever do. But obviously delivering content that speaks specifically to somebody's needs and where they are in their professional life is going to be a lot more powerful, and you're going to get a much quicker response. So, for example, landing pages have a higher conversion rate when they use content to capture information versus just saying, here, give me your information to request more information about the franchise opportunity. So now let's talk about how you can use content to help when franchise prospects are in that consideration, that research and due diligence phase. So potential franchisees are researching and evaluating your opportunity and those of your competitors before you ever have contact with them. So that's why content is so critical, because you can create and craft the messaging about your franchise opportunity for them to find online versus just, letting them find whatever people are saying about your brand online. So it's important to have really compelling content that's going to keep these prospects engaged until they're ready to reach out to you. So when it comes to franchise sales, your digital footprint is made up of a variety of different things, including the information or lack of information across all online platforms. That includes your franchise sales website, social media and networking accounts, the reviews that are out there about your brand, and brand-related search queries. So think about ways that you can use content to answer questions that commonly come up. So websites have always had, the FAQ pages. You can do that through really compelling content and help overcome objections and assist them in researching your opportunity. So here's an example of using content to help them research and evaluate your opportunity. This is a pizza franchise, and we created an industry report that they offered on their website. It included statistics on how much pizza Americans consume, how much money is spent on pizza, just the overall view of the QSR segment, the popularity of pizza, anything that validates the industry and the concept. We also had information in there about trends in healthier eating, because this particular company offers a pizza that's about a third of the calories of other pizzas available. So creating content and feeding them, spoon-feeding them, information that's going to help to validate the brand, validate the franchise opportunity, and validate the industry. So this is your number 2 takeaway. We recommend that you build content to help franchise prospects research your opportunity. So answer questions, do some thinking about when you're working with franchise prospects, what are they asking? And there's no reason for you as a franchise sales executive to have to spend your time over and over and over again answering the same questions. Put it down in content, make it available. And that will help you to close franchise deals faster. So let's look at some other types of content that helps franchisees or prospects research your opportunity. So with 80% of business decision makers preferring to get information in a series of articles versus an advertisement, blogs work really well. So this is the Papa Murphy's blog, and we post articles regularly that demonstrates Papa Murphy's expertise, builds trust. There's profiles of successful franchisees. There's information on innovations that the company's come up with, industry information, press they've received, anything that we could think of that would validate and be useful to people who are looking to vet the Papa Murphy's opportunity. So another benefit of blogs is search engine optimization. So if Papa Murphy's franchise sales executives are out at a conference or convention and they're networking face-to-face, these people, if they're interested, are most likely going to go straight to Google and look for Papa Murphy's franchise. And blog posts show up really high in branded keyword searches. So that's a great way to support efforts that you may be conducting offline. And then you can take this content and repurpose it in lots of different forms. So you can deliver it as an e-newsletter on a monthly basis, pick out some of the best articles, put it together, send it out to leads in your database or people that you've been networking with. You can repurpose them and publish them to LinkedIn as articles. and that'll go out on Pulse. So blogs play a role in both the discovery process because they do rank in search results, and then they also provide information that helps candidates vet the opportunity. So let's move on to another type of content that can help in this process. So this is an infographic, and it provides prospective franchisees with information that validates the franchise opportunity. So we start off by showing the market demand for elder care services, the fact that the senior population is exploding and that there's limited elder care services available, and that those that are available don't deal with some of the advanced care issues that Bright Star Care does address. And we end with a call to action. So infographics are a great form of content for making sense of really complex information about a franchise opportunity, and obviously using statistics to tell the story of why your franchise opportunity is so great is a lot more powerful than just simply telling somebody this is a great opportunity. So now let's take a look at the decision-making process and some content solutions for helping to move them through this final stage. So one form of content is, for the decision-making process, is an automated email nurture campaign. So franchise sales cycles are often really lengthy. They can be very confusing for leads. And by automating your nurture campaigns, it helps so that these leads don't just slip through the crack and go away. So instead, it's a way to cultivate them and close deals faster because you are able to automate this part of the process. So in this example, we're going back to Sears Hometown and Outlet stores. They wanted to target QSR multi-unit franchisees looking to diversify their portfolio outside of the restaurant industry. So as soon as they downloaded the ebook, the automated email nurture series began, and the strategy resulted in supporting the sale of 4 Sears Hometown and Outlet locations. So originally they were going to send out one e-blast that basically just said, you know, diversify your portfolio, invest in Sears. And it would have gone out one time because it was going out through QSR and they didn't have the email list, access to the email list. So by using content marketing, we're able to help them to capture those emails and that contact information because people wanted the ebook. And then this email nurture series went out and continued to present various aspects of the opportunity, and again, speaking to the needs and desires of this particular audience, and also addressing some objections that people would have to investing in Sears, such as Sears is a dying or outdated brand. So statistics show that companies that are really good at lead nurturing can generate 50% more sales-ready leads at a much lower cost. So let me show you how to develop this email nurture campaign. So you don't want to just sort of throw emails together and just send them out, you know, without a plan. So in this case, for the Sears campaign, we plotted out 4 emails. And then we named each of the stage. So the first email they received is obviously, you know, we're still trying to educate them about the opportunity. Then we felt that we should overcome the objections because Sears is obviously a very recognizable brand, and people have certain misconceptions around Sears. And then we followed up by providing information to validate the opportunity and we did that again in email 4. So the first email, and I will actually show them to you. So email 1 went out 7 days after the first conversion action occurred. So they downloaded the ebook, they received a thank you note, and then 7 days later they received this email, and it continued to educate them about the franchise opportunity. And we always provide contact information should anyone early on in the process want to connect with a franchise sales executive. So email 2, as I described, is the countering objections email. So in this email, we went, we just addressed the issue up front. The myth being that Sears is a dying brand, myth being that Sears is outdated, or that the stores are dated and dingy. So we were able to talk about, to differentiate the Sears franchise opportunity from the Sears brand without throwing the Sears brand under the bus. We talked about how, buying habits have changed, and the Sears is actually being more strategic and closing down some of its mall locations and opening in other places. And after that email, we didn't turn anyone off by bringing up these objections because nobody unsubscribed to the email list. So the third email went out 21 days after the first conversion action, and we continued to validate the brand and the franchise opportunity, and we also introduced some additional franchisee profiles. And then finally, email 4 went out 28 days after the first conversion action, and it played up the iconic nature of the Sears brand and the emotional attachment that consumers feel for Sears. So let's talk about technology. So we work with franchise sales teams and sometimes founders and CEOs of franchise companies who maybe don't have a huge budget to invest in technology, and that's okay. Technology is great. It can streamline content marketing efforts, but really it comes down to having a smart, engaging strategy and having the right messaging and understanding your target audience. And the rest you can figure out, or we can help you figure out, or someone can help you figure out. So email nurture campaigns can be executed through an existing system if you have a CRM or email service. It can also be set up for a very minimal cost through an email service provider like GetResponse or Constant Contact. So you don't have to have a huge budget. You don't have to be using the latest and greatest technology, although technology is wonderful and does make your life easier. So the message here is that you can utilize content marketing techniques regardless of the resources that are currently available to you. So here are some examples of some email nurture campaigns that we've done for different brands. And some of these are part of a content marketing campaign. Other ones are part of an e-newsletter that regularly goes out. So number 3 takeaway is create an email nurture campaign. If you have a lead form on your website, you need to have an email nurture campaign. Otherwise, you're not making the most out of the leads that you're capturing. So create an email nurture campaign that answers questions about the opportunity, counters objections to investing, and do all of this before the prospect ever has contact with somebody from your team. So when they're educated about the opportunity, it's obviously going to take much less time to close the deal versus having to start from scratch and automating the lead nurture process through constant contact, get response, or your CRM system. Is going to free up time so that your sales executives can spend more time generating leads and closing deals. And then you'll sleep better at night too, because you won't have the fear that you have let somebody slip through the cracks. All right, we are at the very end, and we are going to go over the 3 takeaways. So the first one is, in the discovery process, use content, a big idea piece that speaks to the particular needs of a segment of your target audience. And this is going to shorten the time that it takes to get prospects engaged with your brand. And the proof to us is that the landing pages that we use content on, and we're giving away content in exchange for contact information, have much higher conversion rates than those that just have forms and they're asking people to submit their information. The second takeaway is use content to help prospects research your franchise opportunity. Because whether you know or not, whether you know these franchise prospects or not, they are out there. If they don't find great content or content that keeps them engaged, you'll never know who you've lost. So by creating content that really does help prospects research and vet your franchise opportunity, you're going to keep them engaged, and they're going to be much more knowledgeable by the time your sales executives are in contact with them. And final takeaway, during the decision-making process or after you've captured their information, after they've shown some sort of interest, it's really important to nurture these leads. And again, use this as an educational opportunity so that you are spending less time saying the same things over and over again and more time on higher level strategy, on closing deals, and the things that are truly important. So thank you all for attending our webinar. And again, this is the first in a series of webinars that Fishman Public Relations will be putting on. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so the question is about how many buyer personas do you focus on average, 1, 2, or 5? So it really depends. It depends on your budget, and it also depends on what kind of content strategy you're going to deploy. So if you are using the buyer personas to create, for example, a new franchise development website, you're going to want to include multiple buyer personas so that you're building out content and navigation that fits with the main segments that you are going to be looking to attract. So say you're a sign company and you want to, one of your targets is to convert independent printers to your brand, and perhaps another target audience is people who had been marketing executives. So you're going to want to create different types of messaging for each of those for your website. But if you're looking to do a content marketing campaign, it again depends on your budget. So if you are just testing the waters or you have a smaller budget, start with one buyer persona. but it's great to be building out these buyer personas, as many as you can think of, obviously starting with the ones that have the most population. So I hope that answers your question. All right. The next question is, how would you suggest the approach may be different? Oops, I lost it. Oops. Hold on one second. All right, here we go. How would you suggest the approach may be different between a more established brand and a franchise versus a relatively unknown brand? Well, one thing about more established brands is that you're going to probably have a database of leads. So you have something that's built in. Hopefully you have segmented out those leads in some way, and you can start there and build out a content strategy based on the leads in your system, whereas a emerging brand is not going to have that. But more mature brands can also come, bigger brands, bigger problems, right? So like in the case of Sears, there's a perception problem because everyone knows the brand, and the brand itself has a history that had to be addressed as part of the content campaign. Also, that emerging versus mature brands, I would mention online reputation. So you can do content marketing until you're blue in the face, but if somebody types in your brand or your brand franchise opportunity, and there's lots of negative information out there, your content strategy is not going to be effective, because even if they become aware of your opportunity through a content marketing campaign, if they are a serious prospect, they're going to do their own research, and they're going to see all of that negative information, and you may not have any sense that you've lost them. So if you have a negative online reputation, you need to start with that first, and that is an emerging brand problem, I'm sorry, a mature brand problem. Mature brands have a leg up when it comes to profiles of successful franchisees and using franchisee profiles in the content marketing campaign, which is definitely something that I encourage you to think about as you're building your campaigns, because that is an important way to validate an opportunity. So an emerging brand may not have franchisees, or they may have brand new franchisees who can't really speak yet about their experience. But there are ways to work around all of that. But you definitely do need to take into consideration where the brand is at as a whole. Okay. Let's see. We can send out the webinar as a recording, or a recording of the webinar. That's what somebody asked. Let's see here. Anything else? So, okay, thank you very much. People are saying great info. I appreciate that. Okay, so the last question, unless anyone else can think of anything, is how can content target different franchisees, and why wouldn't one strategy work for all? So, you don't want to try and be all things to all people because you end up being too vanilla, too bland. You've got a lot of work to do to break through the message overload that's out there. So generic messaging really isn't that compelling. Every franchise says that you're going to have, or most do, greater work-life balance, or be your own boss, be an entrepreneur, but supported by a system. All of these sort of generic claims and messages, while they may be true, they're not speaking to somebody's specific goals or pain points. And we've found that when you do a good job of segmenting out your audience and creating messaging that's specific to them, you're going to get a much better response. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will send out a link to the recording of this webinar. Thanks again.